And so tiny things become imbued with religious significance because there's no proper place, right? And that's not good.
Tape my mouth shut to prevent dehydration while sleeping.
I believe, so why I cheat.
I want to talk a bit about the new Wheel of Time TV series that's on Amazon that came out. And I'm a big fan of the Wheel of Time series of books. I've read it several times. And I am enjoying that they have adapted it for television. And it's nice because I don't think my wife would ever suffer through reading 14 books because she doesn't have that kind of time and is not that interested in reading those sort of books. But we can watch the TV show and talk about it, and I can give her spoilers, which she likes having spoilers, and I get to tell her all about what's not like the book and what is like the book. And anyway, I think it's a pretty interesting adaptation, but I think that in the few episodes that have come out so far, the thing that's the most disappointing is the way that they represented the two rivers. And if you're not familiar with the Wheel of Time, the Two Rivers is pretty similar functionally to the Shire in the Lord of the Rings. And it's the place where the main characters all come from. And it's kind of similar in the books. It's represented in a similar way to the Shire. It's kind of this insulated place. It's separated geographically from a lot, most of the rest of the world, and also separated from the conflict and the chaos and all the things. And the thing that's interesting is that, the people from the Two Rivers are all of a much higher level of competency, intelligence. As it goes on in the story, you also learn magical abilities, skill. They have this sort of really high bar for what they expect of people and their morality and everything. And so as the main characters especially, but even other people from the Two Rivers go out into the wider world and experience things, they're often just far more impressive than the people in the wide world, the supposedly cultured and trained and skilled people, the warriors and all these things. Everybody's always impressed by these country bumpkins that somehow are able to scale huge walls, and they're all experts in archery, and they're all stronger, and all these great things. And I think that in the adaptation, they kind of have made the Two Rivers this more of a grimy place, and all the starting characters have far more conflict with their origin and far less of the kind of longing and the wistful remembrance, which is kind of the way that the hobbits look back at the Shire. So in the books, the Two Rivers is very much more similar to the Shire than as is portrayed in the TV show. And I think that, it remains to be seen how that will come to play in the future, but I think they're kind of missing out on that element because they've already portrayed it as a place that's kind of like not that great, and, it's been abandoned more or less by the characters, it seems like. And I was thinking about this in regards to the meaning crisis, and something that Paul Vanderklay said in one of his recent videos he was talking about the hole that the hole left behind from the church, the absence of the church, and the hole that it leaves in culture and society and all these things. And he said that, Christians who are in a good community and who are not anywhere close to deconstructing and have no sort of existential crises or anything like that kind of don't understand the idea of the meaning crisis. And they just say, like, what's the meaning crisis?
So we have the hole in the culture where the church used to be. And the answer we tend to get from religious people, and I'm one of them, okay, is, well, let's just switch it right back in there. And for some people, in terms of their individual life, absolutely. Absolutely. So, John Vervaeke, I couldn't find exactly which conversation. There have been so many. I mean, he's made very clear that for individuals that he knows who find their way back to the religion that they grew up in, he sees that as, obviously that's going to address their meaning crisis. When I talk about the meaning crisis to people who are well within inside the church under absolutely no threat of deconstruction, they're always sort of like, what meaning crisis? They are within, there is no hole in the culture for them. It fits right in.
That's me. That's where I was coming from. And, when I listened to, like, in that conversation, John Vervaeke talking about what this meaning crisis is and how serious it is.
We have a scientific worldview in which science and the scientists and their meaning making have no proper ontological place. We are the whole. Science and we are the black hole within this worldview that dominates us. And let's be very clear, and this is Heidegger's point. The domination is not just ideational or even ideological. It is woven into the fabric of our technology, the ways we communicate. It's woven into our cognitive grammar. We talk about, like, even the way that we divide subjective and objective. One of Gibson's points, right, Jordan, you mentioned Gibson, is the notion of an affordance. And an affordance is not properly objective or subjective. The graspability of this cup is not a feature of the cup. It's not a subjective feature of me. It's a real relation between me. And so, Gibson's work is really profound. This is why it gets taken up into 40 cognitive science. He's trying to challenge this grammar. And there's a whole bunch of us. I'm in no way a singular individual, although I might be a bizarre one. But I represent a lot of people who are feeling called to the fact that this lack of ontological placement and the fact how the way it ramifies through, our ontological, technological structure and our cultural cognitive grammar, the very ways we think, is causing massive suffering.
So
yes,
I'm
absolutely
still,
right.
I'm unclear about that a bit. I'm still unclear about exactly what you mean. What is this black hole? Is this the insistence on the absolute distinction between the subjective and the objective?
No.
Like, what is this black? Okay, so what is?
Well, what I meant, it's related to that. But what I was directly referring to at the black hole is that does science exist? Okay, if it is, what kind of entity is it? And tell me, using physics or chemistry or even biology, use just that ontology and those methodology. Tell me what science is, and tell me how it has the status to make the claims it does. And tell me how science is related to meaning and truth, and how do meaning and truth fit into the scientific worldview? They're presupposed by that worldview, but they have no proper place within it. That's what I mean. So whenever we're doing the science and saying this is what the world is, we are absenting ourselves from it. We have no home in which we are properly situated. And I think that ramifies through everything we think, say, and do to each other and with each other in a profoundly corrosive way. That's what I mean by the meaning.
Okay, what's the profoundly
It's caused
corrosive
enormous
way? How
suffering.
does that ramify?
It causes enormous suffering. So, I was talking to somebody just the other day in Australia, and there are more deaths by suicide in Australia right now than COVID.
Yeah.
And Australia is
Absolutely.
one of the epitomes of, the best countries in the world, affluent, liberal democracy, not much conflict, been at peace for a long time, blah, 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 blah. All the things that the Enlightenment said would bring in unending happiness. And what you have is spiking in suicide. You have the loneliness epidemic. You have the addiction epidemic. You have people choosing to live in a virtual world rather than the real world. You have all of these things that are pointing to the fact that there's a significant stressor. You have positive responses too. You have the mindfulness revolution. You have the resuscitation of ancient wisdom philosophies like Stoicism. You have you have the work of people like right here. I mean, one of the things, and I hope Jonathan takes this as a compliment because he knows that how highly I think of him. I think one of the things that Jonathan is doing with his work is responding to this suffering and the meaning crisis. We were drawn to each other because we both saw the zombie as a mythological representation. The culture was saying to itself, we're suffering a meaning crisis.
It's easy for me to think, well, yeah, this is the problem of the intellectual elites who are, they're like thinking themselves into a corner, or because they've, they're so dedicated to these materialistic worldviews, or, all of the bad thinking that's, that's brought us here, the Postrational Apocalypse, as some of our friends have dubbed it. It's easy to think that this is just a thing that's happening like in academia and in all the things, and that the regular, especially I'm as a person who spends a lot of their time in a regular kind of a church environment, and there's not really a meaning crisis there, and then it's easy to assume that like the simple people are also not experiencing this meaning crisis. It's happening somewhere else. But recently I saw something that really made it clear to me what this meaning crisis is and where it's all about. And something that Jordan said that was really interesting is about how like really small things become really important, and like these really small things are terrible, and they're not terrible. There's nothing wrong with small things or particular things, or there's nothing wrong with any sort of a thing, a skill, a practice, a hobby, an interest. But when we take these sort of small things, these particulars, and we try to turn them into ultimates, or we try to turn them into meaningful, a place from which to derive a sense of meaning, life goes absolutely crazy.
This is my nighttime routine as a person loving life. I usually start around 4 p.m. by taking a dip in cold fresh water, then go home to make dinner, eat dinner, take my supplements, wash dishes, brush and floss, spray my eyes with beauty water, head outside to stretch and foam roll, walk around the property to check for any ripe fruits, tape my mouth shut to prevent dehydration while sleeping, hop in bed sometime around 6 to 7 and use this time to visualize, affirm, and pre-dream. If I can't fall asleep, I will usually play solitaire or read or journal or make popcorn a dessert.
So I take it. Good things come to those who are patient. So long as I don't waste it, I'll soon stand in my greatness.
For breakfast, I'm having French toast and eggs. Let me show you how to make this. This is a good one. To your egg whites, I'm going to add a little bit of this for flavor and sweetness, and a little dash of cinnamon. You're going to dip your bread in the egg wash. Into the pan they go. I'm going to scramble some egg whites for some extra protein. Dust it with some no sugar powdered sugar. A little dollop of peanut butter just for fun. And some Walden Farms maple syrup.
I believe, so I achieve. I was born to succeed. I keep strong. I keep faith. No matter how long it may take.
This narrative structure is a map.
Yeah.
What that means, if that's true, and I do believe it's true, and I studied a lot of the early work on hippocampal function from animal researchers, and they made some real fundamental discoveries in the field of cognition. It's like we need a map to traverse the world. It's not optional. Without a map, you're lost, and to be lost is a terrible thing. And so. And there's rationality in the development of a map. There better be, because otherwise it doesn't get you to where you want to go. And you certainly want to get away from being lost, let's say. And science is not a map. It's a description of the terrain without direction.
Yeah.
There's direction there, I suppose, but it's implicit. The scientists impose that direction by following the dictates of their intuition of meaning. But science...
And I also think there need to be guides. There are maps, but there needs to be guides. And those guides are going to need to be agents. Let's wear this. I have to put on my pastoral hat.
And to be lost is a terrible thing. And so, and there's rationality in the development of a map. There better be, because otherwise it doesn't get you to where you want to go. And you certainly want to get away from being lost, let's say. And science is not a map. It's a description of the terrain without direction.
Yeah.
There's direction there, I suppose, but it's implicit. The scientists impose that direction by following the dictates of their intuition of meaning. But science itself doesn't offer a map.
Yeah. Right.
Well, there's no rationality outside of science. Okay, well, they let the irrational people design the map. Well, that's what's happening with the politicization of our culture.
Yeah. Right. Right.
And so the religion, and then the rationalists, they say, well, if we...
There's a hole in the culture where the church used to be. And I think that's exactly what Jordan is talking about right there.
We weren't religious and we weren't superstitious, well, everyone would be rational and wouldn't the world be a better place? And I think, no, the religious would drop into the political. And then you watch what happens, and we are...
And that's what's the caving into the hole.
Watching what
And
happens.
that has
because
happened.
there's no domain for the religious now, no specified domain. So tiny things become imbued with religious significance because there's no proper place, right? And that's not good. And so it's not that... It's not impossible. I mean, I don't see a flaw in this claim. I can't see a flaw in it. It's like, don't we need a map? Well, can science provide that map? I've never heard a thoroughly critical, scientifically trained, deep philosopher make the case that science can provide the direction for ethical behavior. And that's the map. What's good? Where should we head?
And, I'm just looking at those small particular things. And, I think these are extreme examples. I just recently read something one of my friends shared on Facebook. And he's a pretty successful business doing photography and videography, and they do wedding films and also advertisement and all sorts of things. And he works really hard and really, long hours. And he was talking about how this kind of like work-life balance thing that gets pitched in all these sort of self-help channels or the influencers who talk about this sort of thing, it's like a pretty more glamorized version of the thing that's causing these meaning crises. And his point was that it's a lie because those people are all working hard on their particular media and products. But, more than that, they're kind of, it doesn't really work. When people try this, it doesn't work. And I think that, the problem is that, the world that we live in on the internet is all driven by these algorithms, and it only wants to show a vast amount of people an extremely small sliver of life, and it only wants to show you the most perfect and most marketable examples of any particular thing. And and then it would lead you to say, what's the point of me pursuing an interest? I have several interests. I'm interested in music. I'm interested in woodworking. I'm interested in writing. Now I'm interested in making videos. I'm interested in cooking. And, all these things, if you are to look at the image portrayed on YouTube or Instagram or Facebook or any of the other places, you get the sense that I will never be at the uppermost echelon of that thing. So is it really worth my time pursuing it? Because we've made this idea that the only purpose for pursuing something is for the reaching the pinnacle of excellence and being famous for it. And I think, it goes the same thing with like looks and things like that. Obviously it's been probably spoken of to death, but the way that like advertisements project images of both male and female perfection out into the world that's unachievable to nearly everybody, and it causes a lot of problems. It makes people feel depressed. It makes them not consider pursuing things that would be good for them, to try to pursue relationships and new things and interests and all that stuff.
For the church to be a living organism, it has to just, in some ways, sit right there on chaos and order. It has to be right there in the middle of it. And that's one of the things that Peterson got right. And so what that means in an estuary group is there's going to be chaos and order. That's those of you, some of you have figured this out already. The salt water and the fresh water, the water coming down from the mountain, the water coming in from the sea, little sea monsters in the sea, the order up on the top of the hierarchy where the fresh water is coming from. This estuary is the meeting of chaos and order in many ways. And so part of what Peterson is complaining about, why he on one hand is lamenting the hole in the culture where the church used to be, while at the same time not going back into that hole and filling it back in with the churches, he says, I'm not seeing the kind of dynamic encounter and journeying that is disruptive enough to the order, but in a fruitful way. And that's terrifying in the church because we don't want to lose found knowledge. But at the same time in the church, we usually, hopefully in our better days, acknowledge that our found knowledge and wisdom is always limited and subject to improvement. But the improvement can't be disorderly. It has to be productive and in the span of things you don't know. And so it's only over long amounts of time that, orthodoxy and heterodoxy sort of co-generate at the same time. And it's only in a long period of time where you begin to see orthodoxy manifesting itself and understanding. And I mean very long periods of time, much longer than our short little lives, which is why the church is always a vital center and why its absence is missed. Missed in terms of wisdom, missed in terms of meaning, missed in terms of knowledge, missed in terms of a healthy society, missed in terms of how do we make decisions about good, bad, right, and wrong, and morality, missed. There's a reason, there's a hole in the culture where the church used to be. And we know we need something in that place again.
And something that I've come to realize for a long time is that if we properly understand the Christian frame, then, it's not, on the one sense, we do focus on the ultimate. We focus on Christ, we fix our eyes on him and what he's doing. But once our eyes are focused there, then, we don't stay in that position. We're not called to just be in a perfect state of meditation all the time. No, he wants us to go out into the world. He gave us a great commission to make disciples and to do things. And I think, I'm not saying this is fundamentally about like preaching. I think that's the big mistake that people often think. But it's about living your life in such a way that you are a representative of Christ to those who you happen to be in relationship with. And if you are a representative of Christ and you are in right relationship with him, then everything becomes meaningful. There's no insignificant acts. How you do your, how you get ready in the morning, how you go to work, what you do at work, not even if it's a meaningless task. I, do carpentry in new homes for kind of grumpy people who are disappointed because the builders inflate the cost of the cabinets that we install in their houses. there's nothing particularly meaningful about the specifics of what I do. And yet, my job gives me significant meaning because it gives me opportunities to learn how to grow in excellence and learning how even sometimes excellence doesn't just mean doing something as a perfectionist, because sometimes that's necessary, but also learning how to do things with speed when that's more appropriate. It affords me the opportunity to listen to meaningful things and to ponder and think, and that is all valuable time. And like spending time with my children, they're pretty young. I don't have deep, meaningful conversations with them, but on a regular basis, I'm blown away by trying to live truth and teach them truth through my example. The sorts of insights that they pick up and then share with me is amazing. And, so I think that, if we have the proper frame, then there is no meaning crisis because everything is meaningful. And even to the extremes of pain and suffering and all the things that people want to eradicate from their life and complain about, I don't want to let any of them go because they are meaningful. And I think that, this is a difficult message to communicate, but I think that this is the thing that the gospel and that Christianity has to offer the meaning crisis. And it is personal, and it is something that you kind of have to gain through living it and not just propositional understanding. But, it's a fully coherent thing. It has all of those things. It's a whole package. And, it's a whole package that when you enter into, then you can do the things to improve your life. You can clean your room and do all the 12 rules for life and the 12 more rules, and those will all be beneficial to you. But, even if you don't have the success that, is supposedly guaranteed by that, you can still have meaning. And it's not something that anyone can take away from you. So, that's what I wanted to share today. Thank you.